that I'm blessed. It's a few L's and millions, so turn that loss to a...
I'd like to make an introduction to Minesh because I've known you now for, probably about about 6 years. We met through the core training, which for those of you that don't know the core training, one of the top mortgage and real estate training companies in the country. And initially, we connected because of your expertise in really how to hire, how to assess your team, making sure somebody is in the right seat that gets it and they're a good fit for that role, but also diving deep into the DISC assessment. I would say Minesh is a master when it comes to personality types, and that's how we connected. But I know today we want to talk a little bit more about balance in general as an entrepreneur. You're an author. You wrote the book $1 Million Team Secrets, Stop Hiring Losers, and it looks like you've published others with your wife, Kimberly, correct?
Yeah.
Several, multiple businesses, but I think of you as just somebody that's really salt of the earth. You're always giving. In fact, I notice the book on your bookshelf there is the Go-Giver book, and that's very fitting for my experience with you. And I'd like to touch on some of those books because I'm familiar with all of them. I think they're all fantastic. But for those that don't really know who you are, why don't you tell the audience who Minesh Baxi is and just a little bit about your background and how you got to this point?
Very good, Darik. First of all, I really appreciate it. And you are obviously very successful. You are out there helping, supporting a lot of people, including your team locally, as well as all over the country, so on. So I appreciate what you do, Darik. And it really is a joy for me to be able to share with people who are watching, listening, because the goal we always have is how can we serve more people with the message, with the talent that we have, right? And to give you a little bit background about myself, I was born in a city called Agra, which is located in India. And for those who may not know much about Agra, it is where Taj Mahal is located. So if you can I've heard of this guy who lived in India, born in the area where Taj Mahal is, right?
Yeah.
So my accent is not exactly from Denver, Lakewood, Colorado. And some people may have a challenge, but I hope that's okay with them today. And I was always a good student. I was a geek. I had my bachelor's in electrical engineering. I was number one in my class. I went to master's in systems engineering and management to the college, and actually the university chain, which is where a lot of successful people in US have come from, including Google CEO, Sundar Pichai. If you talk of Satya Nadella and all these people, they came from a similar version of university that I did actually attend. And so I was very good in school and college, did very well there, except when I transitioned to the workplace environment, I found I was not a good fit. And that's one of the reasons why you see me, and one of the books I wrote is Stop Hiring Losers, because I felt I was the loser.
Which, by the way, Minesh, I love that title. I think it packs a punch. It stands out. You're familiar with Robert Kiyosaki. One of his first books was, if you want to be rich and happy, don't go to school. And I always can appreciate somebody that includes some element of controversy, or opposing public opinion in the work that they do. So great title on that.
Well, thank you. And the reason I felt I was the loser is I really didn't fit in that environment. So what I like to do, my preferences and talents did not coincide with the profession of being a computer programmer. So I totally identify with people who may end up in a job that they never really thought would be their job because they never had an idea what they would like to do, or at least if they like to do, they couldn't find a venue to go there, avenues to prosper. And for 12 years, I struggled a lot during that profession because doing something 8 hours a day that I didn't enjoy, which is the foundation of the book, Stop Hiring Losers. I want people to have a job that they enjoy and the employer finds a good fit in it. And so that was the reason to write the book. So eventually 12 years later, I was an independent contractor. My contract was not renewed. In a nicer way to say that, in the right way to say that, I was fired. And that was 1999. And I had to start from scratch. And this is the funny part. So I was applying for different jobs in computer programming still, because that's all I knew how to make money. I was married. And I was in an interview in Arizona. with Benson Electric.
Okay.
There were 4, 5, 6 people there in front of me interviewing me, and we had a nice conversation. Now, most people who have met me know that I'm really fairly articulate, right? I can speak clearly enough. And
Yep.
here is the funny part. So this is the interesting part. So I was being interviewed, and at that time, was already starting to shift my career towards writing, business coaching, and speaking. And one of the books I had started writing, which frankly I never finished writing, but it's called How to Change Your Career Before Your Career Changes You.
Hmm.
And I mentioned that during the interview. Hey, by the way, I'm writing a book called How to Change Your Career Before Your Career Changes You. 3 people in that interview raised their hand. These are the people interviewing me, saying, hey, when it completes, let me know. So, Darik, what did that tell me? What that told me is these people are also not happy in their career. Is that making sense to you, right?
Absolutely.
70% people are not happy in their careers. And
Hmm.
that's just the general. So 24 years ago, I started on my journey. I published 12 plus books right now. As you know, my daughter will be speaking in Colorado next month on TEDx stage, Cherry Creek. So I'm pretty excited. She's only 20. And the whole goal is I learned my lesson and realized what I wanted to do was not the path I was on. Is that making sense to you a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, before we go any further, let's take a pause, give a quick shout out to your daughter. Can you share her name and also maybe where people could follow her? Also, where they can find you, whether that's Instagram or Facebook, but where can they find you? Where can they find her? And then give us the details about the TEDx event. I know for one, I'd love to go there personally and watch her speak.
Well, thank you. So August 31st is the event.
Okay.
And this will be at Cherry Creek High School.
Okay.
Her name is Macy, Macy. The last name is same as mine, Baxi, which is Baxi. So they
Okay.
can follow her on YouTube. Actually, she has over 300 episodes there.
Wow.
And yeah, she started over 3
What
years
are the
ago.
episodes, Minesh?
Pardon?
What are the episodes on?
Well, interestingly enough, at least over 150 are people from you would know, like Gavin Ekstrom is one of them as an example, right?
Oh, got it. Okay. Yep.
And so so at 17, and I'll explain this a little bit more in detail, but I started her in podcast journey at the age of 17 with the topic asking the people like you and me, what would you say to your younger self? And she interviewed roughly about 200 people on that topic with me. And then she has a new podcast, which is focused on the local areas where we live is Flagler County. So the topic that she has been using right now is why I love Flagler County. So business people, local professionals tell their story, why they love it. And they can find her on LinkedIn, Facebook as well. I think she has some presence on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook as well.
Very good. Very good. I'm curious, you said you kind of got her started on this podcast journey. You've been involved in, again, multiple industries. Again, I know you from the mortgage industry, but I'm curious what you started to see in business in general that has led you to sort of start going down this path of content, social media. They say that I think by 2030, I think 1 in 3 people will have a podcast. So it's a massively growing industry. And so what was it about podcasting specifically that grabbed your attention and said, hey, this is the future. This is something that I think we need to be involved in?
Very good point. So most people have a very narrow understanding of the word podcast. So most of them are thinking of it as a radio station, TV station, somebody broadcasting information. That's number one. Number two is they're thinking, look at me, look at me, look at me. And that is not the way I recommend people should look at it. So maybe you have been joining different networking groups. Maybe you joined networking group like a BNI or something like that. Have you been part of anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. BNI.
Okay, perfect. So in BNI, one of the things they recommend is to do what is called one-to-one, right? And one-to-ones are designed for you to know about the other person, for the other person to know you, to see some common ground and see how to refer each other. Would that be
Yep.
true?
Yep.
Okay, so let's move this a little bit further. So the way I look at it is, let me say, Derek, you and I are busy people. I want to do a one-to-one with you, but I am aware that either I don't want to take out too much of my time, like drive somewhere, meet you for an hour,
Mhm.
or you don't want to do that. Number one. Number two, I don't know how productive this conversation will be, correct?
Sure.
So what I can do, they have two choices. So the first choice, Derek, and tell me which one you prefer. The first choice would be, Derek, I would love to get to know you. Let's get together for a cup of coffee. You share about you, I'll share about me, and then we'll see how we can help each other. So that's option A, right?
Okay.
Let's look at option B. Derek, I have known good things about you. You're doing a great job in the community. You're an excellent business owner. I would like to promote you to my network over a 15-minute Zoom conversation. When can you find time so that I can talk to you and promote you to my network? So between option A and option B,
Yeah. Option
what
B.
makes sense to you, Derek?
Option B.
That's exactly my understanding of using
Yep.
podcast.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's I think it's one of those things where uh it can become very intricate. And I think the business behind it really sets itself up well, almost to be sort of a good old boys club, right? And what I mean by that is, if you have a podcast and I have a podcast and I have you on mine and you have me on yours, there will naturally be some of our audiences that like the person being interviewed or the guest on the podcast, and you'll start to build your following. And so as you get bigger and bigger guests, or as you go on more podcasts, it just gives you the ability to be seen by more people. And ultimately, if there is a service or product that you're selling, you're more likely to capture some of that business that maybe you wouldn't have caught beforehand.
Totally. So there are two components which I think you are right about. The first is the transfer of trust between the two people
Mm.
onto the audience, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So that takes place. And the second is the educational value. And if those two are combined, the people who are watching, listening, they have engagement in the process, in the
Mhm.
information, and they feel, I like this person. I think
Yeah.
what this person has to offer. Maybe I don't feel buying today, but at
Mhm.
least I'll keep the door open and check this person out. And
Sure.
that is the key, in my opinion.
Talk a little bit about, so you said you weren't really happy with your job. Uh, they fired you, in your words, they let you go from the position, and then it really put you in a position to figure out what your next move was. And so what was the first venture you explored right after that happened? And talk to us a little bit about kind of your mental state at the time. I am not a very good employee. In fact, I don't think I've ever had I've had a job, but I've either been fired or I've quit. I'm just not a great employee. And so talk to us a little bit. That can be devastating for a lot of people, right? Talk to us about where your head was at that time. Were you feeling kind of negative or down in the dumps, or did you look at it as an opportunity at the time?
Very good point. So for me personally, I looked at it as an opportunity.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, I was down in the dumps because rejection is never fun. You know that, and
Sure. Sure.
right? But I knew I was done because what happened was this particular location, after I had done the interview, they wanted me to come and move from, I was living in Michigan, to move to Arizona and work there.
Hmm.
But I called the recruiter and I said, I'm not interested. She was devastated because she personally was banking on getting that nice
Sure.
check
Sure.
because of me being placed in that company. And I had impressed everything. I had the resume, I had the skill set, I had a very good presence in the interview. I knew what to say and do. The challenge wasn't that. The challenge is it was not something I really enjoyed. You can have the skill set,
Sure.
but you may still not enjoy it. So there is a difference between the two, and most people possibly don't recognize the difference. And so I called her and said, hey, I know this is not going to be something you like, but I'm not interested. And I stopped applying for any computer programming related jobs. I just finished, like, I'm not doing this anymore. Because I knew it was a dead end for me. I was not going to enjoy it. So why would I pursue that road anymore? And I'd been attending everything from Tony Robbins seminars, Zig Ziglar, you name it. And Bob Burke, as you can see, the book Go Giver, has been a friend for over 25 years. He's come and spoken at my event in Michigan. And I've seen him, for a cup of coffee at his local Dunkin' Donuts that he likes to go to. So,
Right.
so for me, over a 25-year period, plus, so like I have known these people, is because I was always curious about training, speaking, and coaching. So for me, that is a natural talent. I always had that. The problem was I didn't have a way to convert it into income when I was in India. I didn't have a path, which is the reason. So my first venture was very simple, speaking. So anywhere I could go and find a place to speak, I spoke, because that was just the way for me to get my word out, and it wasn't a lot of money, but I started in that journey. So which is what I've been doing for so long, is mainly to find out for other people, is like, what is it that they can benefit from? And initially I started more on the motivational, inspirational route. And then once I found out about the assessments, like the DISC as an example, here is a quick point here. So there is a report or assessment called motivators. So DISC is what most people are familiar with, which is about the behavior style. Motivators is about the why. One of the motivators called individualistic, if that number is high, that's not a good employee.
Right. That's me.
Me too. Me too. I'm not a good employee either, which is why I would like to be more flexible. So for those who are watching who are either frustrated as being an employee or employers who are looking to hire, make sure when you look at the motivators, if the motivator score for individualistic is high, you're going to get frustrated with this person sooner or later because this person doesn't want to be an employee.
And just to expand on that a little bit, guys. So if you look at what DISC actually stands for, I is somebody that's highly individualistic. They're usually very influential. Usually they can be the life of the party. Their motto is, if it ain't fun, I'm not doing it. Usually it's the type of person that, in high school, they'd have the McDonald's wrappers in the back of their seat. They didn't know how to balance their checkbook, but very magnetic, usually very charming. Again, very influential type of person. So what Minesh is saying is, if somebody scores on that DISC assessment a high I, and that's prominent, typically that individual isn't always going to be the best employee, but can be very powerful as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, additionally, there is a motivators as well, Derek. So motivators has a separate quality compared to DISC, and there is a separate individualistic there as well. So in general, so for most people who don't know what DISC is, D is more a bossy person, I is fun friendly, S is steady, team player, C compliance is somebody who wants to follow rules, procedures as given, and is always looking for more information. And you want to make sure the person that you're hiring is the right fit for that particular position, because just like me or just like Derek, you may end up with people that you think are really good people overall, but not the right fit for that position.
Yeah, one thing that I really learned from you and just learned through the process of hiring over the last 5 years, I would say, is that you can always do a better job of setting expectations and really investigating that individual, right? So hire slow, fire fast. I don't know where I heard that, but I think that's really applicable. It's really helped me. And now I have a lot of agents that will call me asking me my input or advice on the hiring process. And I really like even doing a working interview where somebody has the ability to come in, because we've all had those individuals that really impress us in the interview. Their resume is amazing. They communicate well. We're like, wow, this person's amazing. You almost feel lucky if you get them. And then they come on board and they're a disaster. Right. And then also, we've hired those people where it's the opposite, where you're like, they're not really impressing me, but there's something there. I'm going to take a chance. And maybe you're hiring from a place of weakness at that time, and they turn out to be phenomenal. And so I think the more that you can really investigate and get to understand that person on every level, have them do a working interview, you're just more likely to not run into issues later. You're going to minimize the probability of you having to make a difficult decision a few months down the line.
Absolutely. Most people have a simple model, Derek, of hiring: resume and interview.
Mm-hmm.
None of them are the things that they will be doing on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So what they're going to do on a day-to-day basis is a better reflection, right? Based on the process that you just mentioned, which is shadowing you in some form or fashion. You know what I'm saying? Like if you are looking to hire somebody who's going to make cold calls, why ask them question, have you made cold calls? Just give them a phone, give them a few numbers and say, hey, call them. You will know whether they make cold
Yeah,
calls.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Hey, so I want to. There's a few things I want to dive into here. I definitely want to start talking about sort of that work-life balance and just parenting, how you run a successful business or operate as a successful entrepreneur, and a successful husband and father, because they're really two totally different hats that you have to wear. And, I think that it's a little easier to be super successful in one of those two areas, very challenging to be successful in both of those areas. And I know you've managed to pull it off in multiple areas of your life. So I want to talk about that. But I want to go back a little bit to when you were first starting out. Because a lot of times, when you're starting out as an entrepreneur, especially in a position where you don't really know exactly, like what your strengths are, your skill set, you probably have a internal belief of what you're capable of, but you don't really have a financial model or a specific product or service that you're monetizing immediately. So how were you able to bridge that gap at that time? Was this something where you had saved up money from the jobs? Were you going into credit card debt? Did you have to borrow money from family? Like, how were you getting from the W-2 employee position to kind of cracking the code as an entrepreneur and starting to see results financially?
Well, good point. So I had saved some money from the job, so I had some cushion, right?
Okay.
And I didn't have too many expenses. My wife was extremely supportive. And during this time, just like most people, I had my own doubts about whether I can really function independently to produce income on my own.
Mm.
And I was debating whether I should go find a job while I'm looking for better options in terms of creating income on my own. But my wife said, Minesh, this is your passion. This is exactly what you want to do. Don't go somewhere else. It will take some time. Let's work through this. And I was very grateful that she had belief in me, or at least willing to support me in a way that I didn't get distracted. Now, first few months, I can tell you the first coaching client that I got was $75 a month. So if you can imagine where I was at that time in my thinking. But the main thing was there were people. So the first client I had was a chiropractor. I met him at a networking event and I gave him my offer. He's like, Minesh, at $75 a month, I can't go wrong, right? So,
Hey, what was
like,
your offer back then?
well, the offer was very simple, general offer. I'll coach you, talk to you 2 times a month, something like that,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
I didn't really have very specific deliverables. You know what I'm talking about, right? And
Mhm.
most people who are listening to me, watching me, maybe by now they have clarity. There's only one way to make income. Make an irresistible offer to enough people every day. There is no other secret, right? It's like if you want to make money, have an offer that is irresistible to the person who's going to buy it, and then you put it in front of as many people you can every day. If you combine the two things every day, which is why I'm a big fan of Alex Hormozzi's book, $100 Million Offers, because like he says, you don't have to be good at anything else. If you're good at making an offer, you will not have to be good at closing or any of that stuff because your offer is good enough for you to get the job, right?
Yep.
And so anyway, the bottom line is I didn't really have a clear process. Then I started going to more seminars, events, training programs, hiring up for coaching and everything else for myself, that I was getting coaching because I knew I had to learn, which is, I think, one of the challenges quite a few people face. And this is interesting to me, Derek. So most people at 18, or the parents, they know their children at 18 know that they have to go through like a 4-year college or whatever. I'm not saying everybody should. We'll talk about that in a minute. But
Yeah.
they're like, hey, go take a loan out or invest $100,000 in your education for going to college for 4 years, even with no guarantee of a job, right? That's a separate issue. But at 18, nobody asks the question, why should I invest my time, energy, and money to develop skills? Nobody asks that question, right? Everybody has clarity. It's like, yeah, if I need to make a career and an income, I better find a way to make money, and I need to develop knowledge and skills. But when they start in entrepreneurship, they somehow think, because I meet quite a few people and say, Minesh, I would love to hire you as a coach as soon as I make some money. That makes no sense.
Yeah, right.
It's like, as soon as I figure out how to get there, it's like, no, you need GPS before you can figure out to get there.
Yeah, right.
So if nobody's giving you a GPS,
Yeah,
you will be lost forever, right? And that's why that's the number one reason why most business owners who start fail, because they fail to totally understand that they need somebody to coach, guide, mentor them when they don't have a clue what they're doing.
yeah.
I was very lucky that I knew upfront that I needed to invest money in learning, training, coaching, because without it, I knew there was no way I would make any money at any of this stuff. So I flew to different places, all conferences. I spent more money than I should have, but that's a separate issue. The most important part I want to emphasize to people is, if you are struggling, find a mentor who can help you solve that problem. That's it.
Yeah. And I think, if you can't afford to do it, you can't afford not to do it. Right. I mean, yeah, I see that oftentimes too, where people are convinced that, and listen, if the motivation is there, people will find a way. So I think it goes back to, how do you create that irresistible offer, as Hormozy puts it, the grand slam offer, where it's so good people feel stupid saying no to it. And I think if you can combine that with really great marketing. I used to think that it was sales that was sort of the, if you were phenomenal at sales, you could make a lot of money, which is still true. But I would now argue that you could be mediocre at sales, but if you're great at marketing, you're probably going to make more money than the guy that's horrible at marketing but great at sales, because they won't have anybody to talk to.
Well, true. So there is the other part that I want to mention to expand on what you just said. Sales is a very limiting, time-intensive job, right? Marketing can be scaled much easier than sales. And people who are old school sales people, yeah, you can still make money. Nothing wrong with that. And sales is a skill that will help you. But with today's AI, with the social media, all these things going on, and I'm sure you've heard of the Google study called 7-11-4. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Do you mind if I share 2 minutes about
it? I'd love to hear about it.
So Google, and this is something you and I know, we have done this, but we didn't realize there is really a formula behind it, right?
Okay.
So we know people buy from people they know, like, and trust. Like, oh, that sounds good. But how do you build know, like, and trust factor, right? So Google came up with this called 7-11-4. So they said, if somebody has interacted with you or your content over 7 hours, if they have had 11 different interactions and they have seen this over 4 different platforms, they now feel they know you, like you, and trust you to engage in a sales conversation with you, which simply means, like, for example, if people have watched your YouTube videos, podcasts, Spotify, whatever that is, right? If people have seen your blog post, right? Then they have seen those things as content. Maybe they met you in person. Maybe they came to a live event that you did lunch and learn. So there were a number of different ways that they expose themselves to your content. Number one.
Sure.
Number two, different 11 interactions. You sent out an, let's say, EOS or the evidence of success card, letter from the heart card. You had a live event for your clients' appreciation. And maybe you made a phone call, you sent them a text, you sent an email. So like 11 different interactions.
Okay.
And the 4 platforms could be social media, in-person, offline, phone, and everything else included. So if somebody did 7-11-4 over relatively a short time, now the person has a feeling that they know you, like you, trust you. Just like imagine a celebrity.
Sure.
For example, I've been watching recently, I'm halfway, because I watch in spurts sometimes. So I was watching one of Richard Gere's movie, and I feel connected to Richard Gere, though Richard Gere has no connection with me, right? Okay. Why? Because he has done the 7-11-4 with me already. So he has built a bond with me, though I have not built a bond with him. Is that making sense to you?
Yep.
Because I did the 7-11-4 consumption. He just brought out the content.
Yeah, and it's really you mentioned it a few minutes ago, but it's developing that trust. And there's 2 ways you can do it. You can either transfer of trust, right? Where, hey, Minesh, I want you to meet, my buddy Gavin. And because of our relationship, there's already sort of an inherent trust in that individual because you trust me. The second way is time. And I think that's what you were alluding to with the podcast is you have the ability to record content, put it out on YouTube an hour at a time. And when people spend, and I would agree with you, about 7 hours, or 7 episodes in my case, they're probably at a point where they trust you because they get to see you for who you really are once they spend that amount of time. What I hadn't heard is the 11 interactions and the 4 platforms. See, right now I'm only focused on YouTube and Instagram. Now, by default, Instagram bleeds over into Facebook, but once we have those tackled, we'll start to, move into LinkedIn and some other Twitter, some other platforms. But right now for us, it's Instagram and YouTube.
Well, even otherwise, if you're calling people, you're sending a letter to those people, you're emailing them, you're meeting them in person.
Doesn't have to be social.
Correct. So it's online and offline platforms.
Got it. So talk to us a little bit about your library. I have an amazing library at my house. I've been reading self-help books and business books, since I was reading books on investment real estate when I was like literally 12 years old. And I think it's played a huge role in my life in many different ways. But it's something that I hope to be able to really pass down to my kids and share the importance and the value in. Talk to us a little bit about maybe some of the books that we're looking at. I've read every single one of them up there. Cialdini's book is phenomenal. $100 Million Leads is fantastic. That's Leads. Offers is also a good one. Is that one behind you, kind of bottom left? Is that the E-Myth? Michael Gerber?
One is YouTube Formula.
Oh, okay. Got it. Think and Grow Rich, obviously a classic. Is there any book in particular, or if you were to pick, 2, so for somebody watching this, that's, hey, Minesh, I'm thinking about making that transition. I'm scared, but I know that I have a higher calling and my heart's taken me in one direction. Is there any suggestion you would give to that individual, like you said, the younger version of yourself, that you think would have the greatest impact on their mindset and just teeing them up for success?
Thank you. So there are a number of books. My favorite one of all time is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. To me, that should be the foundational book taught in every elementary, middle school, and high school. Because what it talks about, and this is one of the concepts I learned in the book, which is in the first chapter possibly, is talks about the concept of principles. What does principle mean? He says, you can never control the effect. You can only control the cause. What he meant by that was every cause is connected to an effect by a principle. And if you understand the principle and then you focus on the cause, the consequences will take care of themselves. So, for example, if I exercise consistently, which is the cause, the principle of exercising will lead to better muscles, toning, and everything else, right? I can't control better muscles and toning. I can't directly get that.
Sure.
But I can go to the cause because the principle connected from the cause to the principle, from the effect, principle to the effect will make it easier for me to do something which I can control. And I think that is the most foundational concept we all need to learn anywhere we go, because it's easy to want a great body. It's easy to want a great, money account. It's great to want a relationship, but those are consequences and effects. If we don't study the cause and the principle behind it, then we will miss the main idea, and hence we will always chase something that we can never have because we are chasing an effect. We're not chasing the effect through understanding of cause and principle. And for example, I've been married for 32 years. So obviously I made enough mistakes, needless to say. But to have that relationship that I have with my wife over 32 years, when my daughter is 20, she'll be 21 next month. And I remember sitting at an airport waiting for a plane, talking to the person next to me, and we started just chatting. He had a young daughter. I asked, how old is your daughter? He said 16. He said, how old is your daughter? I said, my daughter is 16 as well. Now he rolls his eyes because typically you are supposed to say, hey, my teenager, no, 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 no. It's like, that age, it's always hard. I said, not for me. For me. And I was not trying to brag. I just wanted to point out to him that I had invested enough time, money, energy in relationship with my daughter that I never, from age 13 onwards, I never had an issue. I have never had an issue with my daughter.
Wow.
Okay. And people, it's like, oh, teenagers are supposed to be like that. No, if you have invested enough time, money, energy in that relationship, it's like any other relationship. And
Was there
Mhm.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. And I'm now a father of two. I have a 1.5-year-old girl. I have a 3.5-year-old boy. And we've got our hands full, but that is remarkable to say past the age of 13, you didn't have any issues with your daughter. So what I'm wondering is, was there ever a particular because my wife and I look at different parenting styles, like I'm not sure if you're familiar with Love and Logic. There's a lot of different parenting styles out there, but was there a particular parenting style that you and your wife adopted, or was it something you created? And then part two to that question is, tell us a little bit about how you invested time with your daughter. Walk us through that a little bit if you could.
Yeah, so I'll give you the answer from the actual example. So about 11 years old, when she was 11 years old, one night I woke up in the middle of the night and I see there was light under the door in her bedroom. It was, late night, which as a parent, I was like, she's young, she should be sleeping, right? And I, just like most parents who believe in permission before walking in, I don't. I just walk in and see what happens because she's under 18, she's under my roof, right?
Yep.
So I found out she was video chatting, Snapchatting with somebody. Okay. And you know how that goes and this is, 10 years ago. So we didn't have what we have today, right? So the smartphones weren't very common either. So anyway, the bottom line is I took away the toys, but I knew taking away the toys wasn't the answer, right? So that's the winter. We were in Michigan. So I told my family, okay, we'll go to Florida for 90 days and we will practically go to Disney World almost every day. So this is 2016. And that January through March, pretty much, we flew down, rented a place for 3 months. And because we homeschooled our children, around 3, 4 o'clock, we could choose to go anywhere we wanted. And Disney was a lot easier to go to. Disney's not that simple anymore. It was pretty easy. They didn't have Pandora and Avatar in Animal Kingdom. So Animal Kingdom was pretty much empty most of the time. So you could just walk in once you had the annual pass, right? And so for roughly about 60, 70 days in those 90 days, we went to Disney World or Universal Studios with my children. Now, most people would be like, oh, how can you like Disney so much or whatever else? It was not about Disney. It was not about Universal. It was being where my children would enjoy. So I anchored positive feelings associated with me based on their experience. And we did this for roughly 5 years. Okay. So, and the reason I'm mentioning that to you is I've been to Disney World over 200 times, right? And the point I want to drive home for people is when you are willing to invest that much time, that much energy doing things with your children where they feel enjoyment, and it's not just pampering them. That's not what I'm talking about. It's about activities done together. Do you know what I'm saying? Things which would be fun for both you and them. Guess what? I've never had an issue.
Did you know the science behind anchoring prior to introducing that, or was that something you just sort of looking back, you're like, oh wow, I was anchoring that situation to create the effect I wanted?
No, I've been through Tony Robbins' NLP programs, neuro-linguistic programming. I've read enough books. I can teach people most of the stuff as well. Neuro-linguistic programming teaches the concept of triggers. And one of the strong triggers is called an anchor, which means your emotion and the situation are connected at a deep level that you almost psychologically don't even realize that you're acting based on it. And that is what an anchor is. Yes, I knew very well about those concepts, but I knew the main concept was if I invest enough time, money, energy in relationship with the people I want to be with, it will come back.
How, and being married for 32 years is also remarkable. And, you know, building businesses and all the side projects that you've had over the years going on, sometimes that can be stressful for some. And how did you navigate that? And, you know, I heard you say earlier that she was very, very supportive, which I think is such a game changer. So for anybody listening to this, you know, who you marry does matter, right? Like you really need to make sure that you're with somebody that understands or can at least comprehend the journey of an entrepreneur, because it's not always easy. There are ups and downs. There are financial challenges at times. And usually in the beginning, you may not be making much money. How did you how did you navigate that with your wife and with your daughter to where, and how did you find time, or did you dedicate a certain amount of time each day, each week? Talk to us a little bit about kind of what your calendar looked like and how you managed that with your family.
Well, very good point. So, like I mentioned to you earlier, we work from home and we have been doing that for 20 plus years, right?
Yeah.
So, for those people who may be too young to know this, there's a song called Cats in the Cradle.
Yep.
The song is sung by Harry Chapin, which is a very popular version called Cats in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon. And the song is a story about a man who has a son, and he loves the son loves the father. But during the working years, the father could never find time to engage with his son. The son wants to go play ball, the father doesn't have the time. So ends up being a situation where the father has never really invested time with the son. And then the son grows up, the son moves away. And now when the father is retired, the son is too busy to have time for the father. So I heard this song well before I had any kids. And I was already married at that time. And I said, I will never be that father. So all my decision making of running a business has been based on, am I the father who is available to his family, or am I the father who is not available to the family? And I'll give you a quick story about Steve Jobs, if you don't mind. So most of people have heard of Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, the iPhone, and so on and so forth. So there are three things we typically look for. The first thing is admiration from people who don't even know us. So right now there are people watching you, Derek. They're looking at you. They're looking at your success. They're admiring your success. So there's a certain positive feeling you get by showcasing your success, showcasing your talents, knowledge, etc. And that admiration is number one. Number two, is respect from peers. So people like Gavin and other people that you know in your industry, people you connect with locally possibly, and you get respect from them because you've done the hard work, you've provided for families, you're doing a great job in the community, and you have a respect. The third feeling is called love. This is the most important. At the time when you are dying, unfortunately, at the deathbed, you don't care about the people who admire you. You don't care about the people who respect you. You only care about the people who you love, who love you. In Steve Jobs' case, he had a daughter that he denied existed for 10 years. At the end of his life, he was regretting the decisions he had made because he had put work, like people admire him from everywhere. But for him personally, it made no difference in his dying moments, because what made difference was, is my daughter, is my ex-wife, are they close to me? And if I don't do that, I think about that all the time. So I'm working with my family because I know that when the moment comes, I want to be the person who is not regretting having not invested, and get that feeling of love from my family. So I'm willing to give love to my children and my wife because that's what is going to come back to me. So everybody else, Derek, takes a backseat for me. Nothing is going to be more important than my wife and 2 kids in my calendar ever.
Now,
And I've lived that for over 20 years.
I'll tell you that that's phenomenal. I think, I mean, for me personally, I really struggle with that because I have this ideal of what success means for me, and maybe what the outside world tells me it should be. And so I'm always striving to meet something that may be almost idealistic and maybe even unattainable potentially. But for you to have the ability, for anybody to have the ability to say, I'm putting whatever it is ahead of my work, my success, my income, my net worth, I'm putting my family ahead of that. That really takes an abundance mindset. And I think that the opposite, see, I don't think of myself as somebody that lives in a scarcity mindset, although there's almost an element of a scarcity mindset with me putting work and success and money first, right? And there's almost this fear of maybe running out of time, or I don't know. I don't know what that is exactly, but um, have you always had that sort of abundance mindset, or is that something that you had to work on? And how did you develop that over time?
Well, thank you. So I won't use the word abundance because abundance could be in any form or fashion, right? Abundance could be
Okay.
money, could be time, could be so on and so forth. I've always been more a relationship person. Like there are people, without going into detail, who evaluate success purely based on money you make and money you have. Okay.
Sure.
That's a lot of part of the society, right? Okay. Anytime you go and talk to those people, their questions are pretty much how much money are you making? How much have you saved? And again, it's an important question. I'm not going to say it's not important, except that's not who you live for, or what you live for.
Yeah,
What
sure.
you live for is affection and love from people. That's it. If I can boil it down to one simple thing, it is, if you have anything to focus on, it should be affection and love from the people you care about. That's it. If I can invest my time, energy to build that really strong bond where my daughter, at 21, close to 21, my son 16, my wife for so many years, do I have challenges? Absolutely, like everybody does. So I'm not trying to come from a place I'm on a pedestal, right? But I'm very, very glad in what I have invested in, specifically my family relationships. I look at that and I have never had to wonder, did I make the right choice? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I may not be successful in some people's eyes, and I totally understand that. But in my eyes, what matters more is my family. And if they view me in a positive way, they feel love and affection towards me, I've done my job. Is that making sense what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
Where did that belief come from, or is that a cultural thing?
Good question. So again, I think it's a self-evaluation over a time period. It's looking at people who chase the uh, what do you call the unattainable, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Because at every point when you achieve a goal, it's always going to be, is this all there is to it, right?
mhm.
You can be making 10,000 a month, 100,000 a month, a million a month. It doesn't really matter because all of those are numbers, right? But what, and I'm not saying those are not good things and those are not important. I'm not saying any of that stuff. All I'm saying is, if you put that as a priority above relationship with the people who are close to you, at some point you'll realize that it's not the best use of your time.
Love that. Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. Well, Minesh, I feel like I could talk to you about 1,000 other topics. This has been awesome. I'd love to have you back on the show just because I really do believe we could go down the rabbit hole on a lot of these topics, and there's so much more to cover. Before we wrap up, what was the second book you would recommend? So, first one was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. What would the second book be?
Well, there are a number of second ones, which I would say. One is Go Giver by Bob Berg.
Okay.
He's an excellent guy who actually is a giver kind of a person. He's very helpful individually. I know him as a person. I would
Mhm.
highly recommend reading the Go Giver book as well. Obviously, we haven't talked about the Bible, stuff like that. I didn't
Mhm.
put that as first just because I think we were talking more of general self-development, not
Yeah.
specific to Jesus. So the Go Giver would be another great book that I would highly recommend. In today's business environment, I would say $100 million offers is
Mhm.
definitely a groundbreaking book for people to watch,
Yeah.
listen, read, whatever they can. Because
Yep.
Alex Harmozy boils it down to one simple thing. If you have the skill of building an offer, you don't need any other skill in business to start.
Mm, mm. Yeah. That's no, it's a phenomenal book. Great recommendation. And then remind everybody again where they can find you. And then your daughter again is going to be speaking uh uh at the Cherry Creek High School on August 31st. That's a TEDx talk, and that's Macy Baxi. So, guys, go check her out. Find a way to get down there to watch her speak. I know it'll be a phenomenal TEDx, so I'm excited to go to it. And then, one more time, where can they find you?
So they can find me at mbaxi.com, which is my generally, but LinkedIn is another place, Facebook is another place they can find. And one of the things which I've become very enchanted with, which I would highly recommend as a tool for everybody, which is the foundation of the concept of irresistible offer called lead magnet. A
Mm,
lead magnet
mm.
is an introduction to your services, products, etc. But the one that I use is called Score App. And if you want, I can send to Kenna or you a couple of links for that. But the main thing is, most people don't want to be sold. Most people don't have time. They
Sure.
have ADHD and everything else. So, for example, uh, Stop Hiring Losers is one of my books. And I have a short questionnaire called Are You Ready to Hire? So it has about 10 questions, which if you are hiring, those are things you should be doing. Like I have a job description and all that kind of
Mhm,
stuff, right?
mhm.
And by just going through those questions, the person who's taking it, assuming this is an employer, they would look at it and say, hey, you know what? I should be taking these steps to make sure I'm hiring the right person. So it comes across number one, educational.
Yep.
Number two, it doesn't come across salesy. And
Mm.
number three, it positions you as the expert so that the person who is completing it isn't going to ask too many questions. Like last week, I had somebody referred to me and I sent him the quiz and he finished it. He's like, Mesh, I'm 0 out of 10. I need your help.
Mm.
So, Derek, how easy would it be if you could help somebody diagnose the pain themselves and they could see you as the person who provided them that knowledge and positioned you as an expert? Wouldn't that be a good tool to use to create relationship without you having to force somebody to talk too much about yourself? Would that make
Mm.
sense?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's a tool which I will
Okay.
give the link for,
Yeah,
which
please
people
do.
can take. But I think it's a really, really good tool to use to have a quiz so
Mhm.
that people can identify their situation on their own.
That's great. And guys, we'll put that link in the description of the podcast when it airs. So Minesh, again, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show. This has been awesome. I also look forward to getting together with you one-on-one, but for anything coaching, business, entrepreneurship related, Minesh is your guy. Go check him out, get in touch with him, and look forward to seeing you again soon, my friend.
Derek, what a pleasure. You are such a giving person to give me time today, and I feel privileged in the process.
Oh, same. Likewise. Thank you.
Every time that I see a limit, what? I push right past it. Don't care if you got here first, the one to win is the last one standing. Say my life is like luck, nah, I had to plan it. The way I work is out of this earth. I can feel the momentum. Need it all, no fractions. Dream it, then I gotta have it in the booth like Tom Cruise. Whole lot of